Hey everybody, and welcome back for another deep dive today.
Oh.
We're looking at something I bet you see every day, but maybe never really think about flags.
Okay.
But specifically, U.S. state and city flags. We've got some excerpts here from a podcast script called Fun with Flags. And I'm so excited to unpack all the history and symbolism.
Yeah, it's funny how something as simple as a flag can represent so much. Entire communities, histories, ideas.
Yeah.
They're more than just designs. They're stories waiting to be told.
Absolutely. And you will believe some of these stories. Let's start with something iconic. The California state flag. With its famous bear.
Sure.
Now, this flag, officially called the Bear Flag, actually has its roots in a short-lived independence movement back in 1846. For just a few weeks,
Wow.
California declared itself an independent republic. It's a fascinating blip in history that most people don't know about.
It really is. And what's even more fascinating is that the original bear on the flag looked more like a pig.
A pig.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine that California with a pig on its flag today. The design went through quite an evolution, with some heated debates before they landed on the bear we know now.
Wow, that's a fun fact I'll never forget. Makes you wonder, who were these designers? What were they thinking?
Right.
What kind of conversations were happening around the design back then?
Right. It's a reminder that even the most established symbols have a backstory, a process of creation, and sometimes even a little bit of controversy.
Okay, so we talked about a state flag. Let's move on to a city flag. With a story just as interesting, we're heading to Chicago, where their city flag is so popular that people get it tattooed.
You're not kidding. That speaks volumes about the emotional connection people have to their city. It goes beyond civic pride. It's a sense of belonging, a shared history that they want to carry with them.
I get that it's like wearing your heart on your sleeve, but in this case, it's your city on your skin.
Yeah.
But let's break down this flag a bit. I know each star in the Chicago flag represents a major event in the city's history.
Exactly. You have the 4 red stars, each representing a significant event. One for Fort Dearborn, the city's founding; another for the Great Chicago Fire; one for the World's Columbian Exposition in 1893; and finally, one for the Century of Progress Exposition in 1933-34.
It's incredible how much history is woven into those stars. If you look closely at the flag, you're essentially looking at a timeline of some of Chicago's most defining moments. It's like a visual shorthand for the city's story.
And each star comes with its own tale of resilience, innovation, and the spirit of Chicago. For example, the star representing the Great Chicago Fire is a powerful reminder of the city's ability to rebuild and rise from the ashes.
Speaking of flags with powerful stories, I've got to ask about Maryland's state flag. It's so bold and unique. Totally unlike any other state flag I've seen. It's like someone took a coat of arms and just exploded it.
That's a great way to put it. It's definitely visually striking. And the reason for its unique design is that it's based on British heraldry, a system of symbols and designs used to identify individuals, families, and institutions.
Heraldry. Okay, I have to admit, I don't know much about that. Could you give us a quick crash course?
Of course, imagine a system where families and institutions have their own visual emblems, kind of like logos, but with a historical twist. These emblems, often displayed on shields or banners, use specific colors, symbols, and patterns to represent their history, values, and achievements.
Interesting. So, how does that connect to Maryland's flag?
Well, the Maryland flag directly incorporates the heraldic symbols of the Calvert and Crossland families, who were instrumental in the founding and early history of the Maryland colony. The black and gold quarter design comes from the Calvert family crest, while the red and white cross botany comes from the Crossland family.
Ah, so it's like a visual representation of Maryland's heritage
Okay.
and its connection to these two important families.
Exactly. It's a beautiful example of how flags can be used to tell stories about family legacies, historical connections, and the very roots of a place.
Okay, this is all blowing my mind. Who knew there was so much to learn about flags?
Just wait, we're just getting started. There are so many more fascinating flag stories to uncover. It's incredible how each flag we've talked about so far tells a unique story about identity, history, and even the evolution of design.
You know, it makes me think about other flags out there with compelling backstories. Like, what about flags that spark strong emotions or controversy?
Oh, absolutely. You have flags that become symbols of resistance or revolution, like the Rainbow Pride flag, which has become a powerful symbol of LGBTQ plus rights and activism.
That's a great example. It started as a symbol of pride and has evolved into a globally recognized emblem of a movement. It's amazing how a flag can hold that kind of power.
And on the flip side, You have flags that become points of contention, often because of their historical associations or perceived symbolism. Flags can be powerful tools for unity, but unfortunately they can also be symbols of division.
That makes sense. Like a flag can represent something very different to different people.
Yeah.
Depending on their experiences and perspectives.
Exactly. It underscores the importance of understanding the context and history behind a flag before making judgments or assumptions.
You've got a point there.
Yeah.
It's easy to just see a flag as a pretty design, but there's always a deeper story waiting to be uncovered. This whole conversation is making me realize how much I've taken flags for granted. I mean, I see them all the time, but I've never really thought about the thought, the intention, and sometimes even the drama that goes into creating them.
It's fascinating, isn't it? It's like a whole world of symbolism and history is hidden in plain sight.
All right, so we've talked about state flags, city flags, flags with controversial pasts. What other rabbit holes can we dive into in the world of flags?
Well, we've talked about heraldry, but there's a whole fascinating field of vexillology dedicated to the study of flags.
Vexillology. Okay, that's a new one for me. So these vexillologists, they're like the ultimate flag experts.
You could say that. They're the folks who can tell you everything, from the meaning of a specific color on a flag to the historical origins of a particular design. They're like walking encyclopedias of flag knowledge.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm picturing them having heated debates about the proper way to fold a flag.
Haha. You're not far off. There's a surprising amount of detail and nuance involved in the world of flags.
This is all making me think about my own state flag.
Yeah.
I've seen it countless times, but I've never really taken the time to understand what it represents.
I think that's a common experience. We often see flags as part of the background, but they hold so much potential to connect us to our communities, our history, and even our own personal values.
Okay, so after this deep dive, I'm definitely going to do some research on my own state flag and maybe even check out some of those vexillology resources you mentioned.
I highly recommend it. You might be surprised by what you discover. Every flag has a story to tell, and those stories can be incredibly enriching and thought-provoking.
This has been an eye-opening conversation. I never realized how much depth and complexity there is to something as seemingly simple as a flag. It's like a whole secret language waiting to be deciphered.
And the best part is, you don't need to be a vexillologist to appreciate the beauty and power of flags. Just a little bit of curiosity can go a long way.
You know, I got to say, I'm walking away from this conversation with a whole new appreciation for flags. I used to just see them as decorations, but now I realize they're like little windows into history and culture
Yeah.
and even art.
That's the beauty of symbols, isn't it? They can hold so much meaning and spark such curiosity. It's like holding a tiny piece of a larger story in your hand.
Exactly. So to our listener, we encourage you to take a closer look at the flag of your own state or city. What stories does it tell? What symbols are hidden in plain sight? What emotions does it evoke in you?
You might be surprised by what you discover. Maybe you'll uncover a hidden connection to your own family history, or gain a deeper understanding of your community's past.
And who knows, maybe this deep dive will spark a newfound passion for vexillology. You could be the next flag expert deciphering the sacred language of these powerful emblems.
Or maybe you'll just start noticing flags a little more in your everyday life, appreciating the stories they tell and the connections they represent.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of flags. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious.